Back again for another video. All right. So I know I said the last one wasn't going to be long, but I ended up addressing a few comments from the chat. But I think it took about 10 minutes or so to get through that. About 12 minutes is what I counted to get my whole rhetoric out. And I put a few additional things on there, of course. Um, but today's topic is going to be I make the titles and then I'm like, what's the title again? But today's topic is going to be pretty much about what was lost in the translations from the relationships of past, of why they, even now, still to this day, exist from 20, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and why our newer generations cannot maintain more than 6 months with someone. So, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And of course, I don't really have anybody in the chat, anybody watching currently. So, just as usual, I'm going to give it about 1 to 2 minutes and then we'll proceed from there. But the reason why I'll just give a little context to why I thought this was another important installation is because the reason why I wanted to do this because we don't have a clear context of what makes relationships last. No one seems to know that for sure. I mean, we all have our own individual um, ways of looking at it. I guess you can say we all have our own experiences, and we all have our templates that were passed down. But there is something that is consistent. Because I often say the truth is consistent. It is very consistent. Uh, hey, what's going on, my Kendra? And what's going on, BJ? How y'all doing today? Well, right now, I know how y'all doing today. But we don't we don't remember. It was never passed down. We don't understand uh, the context of how to what a long lasting relationship should be built off of. Um, and it's kind of weird, my life it is, that I ran across a lot of the things from the actual truth. um they work, they definitely work. And I just wonder why I was given the opportunity to know a lot of these things, because no one ever taught me this stuff. It just came to me to make sense. It was just thoughts in my head. I didn't read it anywhere. No one told me anything. Sure, I listen to a lot of content, but once again, I wouldn't be doing this if there was anything to my knowledge that already existed. I talk about things from a different angle. Sure, they are the same topics, but I see things once again that other people don't see. So I'm here to bring you that context. So anyway, I'll go ahead and proceed from here. Um, this is the way I see things. Um, we oftentimes see that relationships fail very rapidly this day and age. Um, People would say that's akin to the hookup culture, but I don't think so. I mean, because sure, we have had a society that had structure, but people were still getting around. It was cheaters have always existed, and the opportunity for sex has always existed. What's going on, Albert? What's going on, Book of Rhymes? So we can't necessarily say that because once again the truth is consistent, meaning that you will consistently find this across the spectrum of the civil how the civilization has changed. But we can't necessarily say that it was because of the culture. Because the culture has changed, and people have figured out how to maintain relationships despite the culture changing, and despite us believing that promiscuity is such a new thing. It's been around for a very long time. but yet there is still long lasting relationships in those times in abundance. Um, though I won't discount and say that hookup culture does not have an effect on the current relationship abilities of our society. Definitely. Although at the same time, I will not give it all the credit. So we can't necessarily say it's that. Um, and we can't boil it down to a micro level to say that the individual is the reason why they don't have relationships, because we all have our different reasons of why the relationships don't last. Some of them come from, definitely a lot of them actually come from the gynocentric programming, but even after the fact that we have chosen not to engage in that, we are still at a loss of how to find long lasting relationships and what the keys are to them. Just because you choose a different program doesn't necessarily you have mean that you have all the answers all of a sudden on how to live the life that you want to live. That's what I'm here for, because I have some of the answers. I don't have them all, but I have some. Um, but the way we go about relationships is generally the same. We meet someone and we engage socially with the person. We try to get to know them. We try to understand who they are as a person. We try to make up for what the structure that the current structure does not give us. Because it used to be back in the day that you know the the father, or the mother of the household could give you a resume on their child. They can say, this person is a good person. This is what they did. I mean, even now they still practices in the Jewish community. If you have certain things in your family line, you kind of outcasted from that community. Or if you, have done certain things in your lifetime, though your family could vouch that you're a decent person, if someone finds it out, you're outcasted. So they have structure, but it was kind of the same of how we used to be, how the Jewish community is now. Um, though they don't have all their ducks in a row either, but they have some type of cohesion that is long lasting nonetheless, more so than we do, as a general society. And I'm not saying that they're better, because once again, they have their faults as well. But what I'm saying is I'm making the comparison of structure versus no structure, and what that gives you, and versus what you have to do when there's no structure in place. So you have to vet the person. But one of the things that people don't understand these days is, we get married. We do all these things that require us to be legally bounded to this person, and yet and still it still fails. Why? Why does it still fail? We abided by what the system told us to do. We abided by what our parents suggested that we do. We abided by what our friends said were pitfalls and that we should avoid. But yet and still, the relationship still failed, because there is a key component that is lost throughout these failed relationships, and everyone should know what that is. It's purpose. There has to be a purpose for the relationship in the first place. Without the purpose of a relationship, you're left to everything else. I'll tell you, this is how I'm going to structure it. So I'm going to start back with how relationships are formed naturally. Now, we form them because we like something superficial, and then we start to pick out that person's personality, and we like something from their intrinsic value as a person. But that is not necessarily a purpose in itself. That is these superficial desires that we are meeting for our own needs that we view are appropriate, for having a partner. That is not purpose, because these things could change over time. A person could gain a different mannerism based on, some traumatic event that they may experience during the relationship, or this person could be faking the whole entire time. Um, it can be a range of different things, but that's the reason why it fails, because it's based off of things that can go away with just a whim. And I'm not saying that purpose necessarily cannot go away. It can. This is also the reason why you see People who are married for a long period of time, and then as soon as the kids leave, they get a divorce because that was the purpose that they agreed upon. They agreed that they would stay together for these children and help raise them in a solid nuclear household. That was the purpose. So the relationship lasted as long as the purpose did, and that's what I'm saying. It's not that the purpose is everlasting. It can be if you create such a purpose, but most times, we are pretty short-sighted when it comes to making purpose, because society once again doesn't teach us this. So we make all these short purposes, and they get accomplished, and then a relationship ends. But the difference between an emotional foundation versus a purposeful foundation is because emotional foundations, they're all over the place. Emotions could be here one day and gone tomorrow. But here's the difference once again. Purpose. Purpose isn't here and gone tomorrow. Purpose isn't here and gone next week unless you actually accomplish the purpose. But let's be frank. Why even form a relationship that you consider interpersonally that you expect to only last 2 weeks behind a purpose that is only going to take 2 weeks to accomplish? That'd be silly, right? So it goes without saying that people generally wouldn't do this if they put purpose for the reason why they formed the relationship in the first place. So what I'm saying is that relationships, they should have some level of emotion to them. And I'm not saying that this should predicate the rationality and the purpose of the relationship, but it just comes naturally with the relationship. Because once again, we're social creatures. you know if you're around a person enough, and you come to a stable point of understanding between the two of you, you'll have some type of emotion towards this person. I'm not saying you're going to fall in love with, your coworkers or anything like that, but you may become good friends with them, because there are conversations that are had even within the workplace that sometimes transcend outside of the workplace, because people meet after work, maybe have a drink, or, you know, uh go to a birthday party, some gathering or something like that. You form close bonds with these people as a result, which necessarily aren't your interpersonal relationships, but that just shows the template of how these things could form, and why the emotions just come naturally. Like I said, they aren't a prerequisite to having the relationship, but they just form naturally as the relationship progresses. Just like anything else, you get a puppy that pisses all over the floor, you hate his guts, and after a while, you learn to love him once he becomes stable in your environment, and you get him to learn what he needs to learn so that he's not pissing on your furniture, you know, and you form a relationship. Once the hard work, once the rough edges are smoothed out, you have a good product usually with people. I won't sit here and say and be one of the people that say you should wash your back and everybody's out trying to get you. That's not the case. Most people mean well. It's just that you have to form the relationship, that you have to meet at grounds where you both can see eye to eye. And we have lost the art of communication with our brothers and sisters. So that's kind of partially why we're in the situation that we're in. But anyways, back to the topic at hand. When you have purpose as a foundation of a relationship, it is more structurally sound, because now you have an actual reason to be together. Not saying that your love and your attraction, or whatever things that you hold in high value in an opposite sex partner, you those things aren't non-important. They become important. But if the purpose is there first, meaning the agreement that you two fall together and say, we're going to be together, so that we can accomplish X, Y, and Z. And that could be, you can make the goal as large as you want it or small as you want it. And you can even revise your purpose once they are completed, meaning that, you know I think we do really good together in accomplishing, starting an online business. You can start an online business, and then, you can get it up and running, and then you kind of look at each other like, so How what do you think about, I don't know, continue our relationship in the pursuit of actually having a brick and mortar business? I mean, you don't have to stop there. But what this does is it gives you a real tangible point to actually form a cohesive reason of being. When you start to form relationships based off of emotions, once again, emotions are all over the place. They are not good anchors for a foundation when building a relationship. Though, like I said, they can come become part of the relationship later on in the beginning, but they should not be the first reason why you are forming the relationship, because the emotions can sometimes go away. So what are you left with? Even if you have, let's say that you started your relationship on an emotional basis first, and then you moved it over to a reason to accomplish this. Usually the male can stay on par. But with a woman, you got to keep in mind that there are certain rules to deal with women that are pretty much across the board. They are uniformly true, is what I'm saying. How you start a relationship is how you're going to end the relationship. Because if you start the relationship on an emotional basis, then that's how the relationship is going to end, despite there being a purpose there. That's why men are so confused about, well, we did all this stuff together. We started a business. We had kids and we did this and that, but she doesn't want to be with me anymore. That's because it started off emotional with her. You started off emotional with her. You didn't start with a purpose. I mean, people make the assumption that a lot of these things should be just nuance. Like, why wouldn't you want to build with someone? Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you want to form the best type of financial structure you can with this person? Sure. No, these are things that should be assumed, but they're not with the woman. You know, a woman is following your direction. So if you give her the direction that the basis of the relationship is going to be emotional, and then you start doing all this other stuff, not saying that that's inappropriate to do, but I'm telling you why it fails. You start doing all this other stuff, and then you're leaning more towards that as being the reason why the relationship should sustain. She's keeping in her mind that this started off on an emotional basis. So when the emotions are not there for her anymore, meaning that somehow there is a degradation of the understanding that you two have emotionally, she no longer has any reason to stay. And men would view this as disloyal. To some degree, I can rationalize with you, but you're when you play in a woman's arena, you have to abide by her rules. That's just how it works. How you avoid playing in a woman's arena is that you make the relationship stand for a reason. Now she has a physical tie to why the relationship should exist. So at any point in time that she feels like she can't do it, that she feels like she doesn't want to, that she feels anything opposite to moving forward in a relationship, you can always draw her back with the purpose of the relationship. That's how this works. So that's my little stream. I like I said, I like to make these real quick, get them on out the way. Um, there's nothing crazy. I hope this isn't too far fetched for people to understand, but I just want you all to make sure that, especially the men, I want you to make sure that you understand that you have power in everything that you do and everything that you don't do. Sometimes disengaging in certain actions and certain things that we do in this world is power. It's not always the power to do something, it's also the power to not do something. That comes with the discipline. you know so you can willpower by not engaging with certain women who don't fall in the criteria that you're looking for, and thus you are in control of your environment by simply doing nothing but adhering to your own principle. And to the women, I would say, it don't get with a man that doesn't have a plan for why the relationship should exist in the first place. If he comes to you, I mean, I can definitely understand, the first the first roundabout, getting to know each other, you don't want to slap the purpose definitely on the table. I feel that women would be very uncomfortable with that. They're like, you don't even know me and you want to start a business with me right now? Like, how do you even know I'm business savvy? So there has to be some level of investment, of understanding and communication, and getting the basis of who the other person is and expressing who you are as the individual that you are. But once it gets past that point, a man should be presenting you with an idea of where he sees you in his life, and that is the tangible purpose. Once you two form the agreement on that, then definitely you can move forward. But if a man doesn't give you that, you should not engage. The reason why is because if you go into that emotional setting, you know that you're going to be expecting those emotions the whole time. And once they're gone, you're gone. You know this. We know this. This is not a secret to anyone anymore. At least I hope it's not at this point, because there's too much information on this YouTube sector that for you to be that ignorant. Uh, so, anyways, let me go over to the chat. Let's see what's going on. Let's see if I missed anybody. Kendra says true, which is why I don't think any relationship should be based on emotionalism. Should be based on purpose and function. Love and all that can develop throughout, and it will be healthy. Legitimate processor said functional over emotional, definitely, because we are the leaders. That's the reason why masculine lead, feminine follows. Function over emotional. Kendra says again, the relationship should be based on the loyalty, duty, principle, etc. These things are stable, and see a couple through times where emotions leave or change. Very much so. Maybe I'll talk on that. Maybe I'll talk on that. The duty, the duty of a woman, is what she agreed to do when the relationship started. And that in itself could be the perpetual purpose of the relationship, to go past any point that you may create that is behind that point from that point on. Let me say that again. Let me say it a different way. Let's say that, you know, like for instance, this is the reason why. I mean, a lot of these things are lost arts. A lot of people look at these things as being cliche, but they are actually the keys to having a long lasting relationship. The vows that people took when they got married, until death do us part, is actually a duty. That is actually a duty, but no one takes that serious. So us men, we have to articulate more specifically, so it doesn't get washed over in the white noise of society's cliche, words that they use, and cliche terminologies that they use. And I think forming a tangible reason, giving a woman a reason for being in a relationship, is what she's looking for, anyways. So it's not far fetched for you as the man to say, I want you around because I believe that you could help, build this business, or you can give me insight where I don't have any. It's okay for you as a man to admit that, because women understand a different realm than we do. So it's definitely okay to tell the truth. It's the reality. That's part of being a man. That's part of being definitely red pill, is to admit that women have abilities that we don't have as men. And adhering to those, is part of it as well. Because I'm a firm believer in what the Bible says. You guys already know that, it says, you should submit to your husband, you should submit to your wife. And this means different things. It doesn't mean what you think it means. It means that you should submit in the way that they are meant to protect you. That's how it goes. We ask women for submission of the physical care of them. So why can't we submit to the emotional care of us? It's no different to me. I don't have any issue with that at all. I mean, I don't think men actually have an issue with that, but I think they would have an issue with it being put in that context. But it's the truth. I mean, argue me if I'm wrong. Please do. I often take on the challenges of people's rhetorics. Doesn't bother me. But let's see what else is in here. Legitimate processor says salute you, Luke, and salute to the chat, by the way. Good to see you here. Ebon Coleman, aka Ebro Sosa, was good with you. That's pretty much my stream. It's not. I'm not. I don't have any. You know, stamina. Well, I wouldn't say stamina. I just like to get straight to the point. Um, and I'm not saying this is no knocking on anyone else's. Because they can elaborate. A lot more ways than I can. I could, but I don't think it's pointful. I don't think there's a point in the context that I'm using what I'm saying. So um, I'll leave it there. And if you guys have any questions, of course, I'll be here for a minute or two, maybe about 30 seconds to a minute, somewhere around there. Um, but that is my stream. I appreciate everyone for coming through as usual. Um, I'm going to try to make this a common thing, but please don't get upset with me if for some reason you don't hear from me from like a week. I because once again, I don't like saying something if it I don't like to talk just to be talking, because that's how you end up tripping yourself up with having to double back on correcting something that you said. I like to be concise in my thoughts, and taking the time to actually sift through them and consolidate them is what I do. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Ebon. Can said just so long as you drop content, make us miss you for live streams. Yeah, I'm like I said, I have some pre-recorded stuff already that I have to sit down and chop up. But I'll put that stuff out when I think it's appropriate to put it out. But definitely, I'm more than likely try to keep up with the content. I'm going to actually put more stuff on my other channel as well, because there are a lot of topics that need to be discussed, especially with the current situations that are going on, coronavirus, and, what you should be doing as a man, dominant over your space, dominant over your finances, those kinds of things. And definitely dominant over your women, dominant over your children, dominant over everything, dominant over everything. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. So I say to you all, may you have a good day and peace be with you.